He wants to jump
1,000 cars. Sir, you have 1,000 cars.
I don't think I'd attempt to try this stunt.
Or we owe this horsepower to Uncle Sam.
Too many cars.
car. Roses would be...
Like I put my beer belly on it.
You can't immediately tell somebody how many cars you have.
You'll really give those uppity yuppies something to think about.
Stay on the bar. Don't go off the bar with your Bronco.
1980 Volvo horns. What's right? I want to have a man's coolant.
And he's like, oh, I thought it'd be small. It's for a small car. And I'm like, yeah, but it's still an automatic transmission. They're never going to be light.
It's definitely going to have to crash.
Starting off with Brad buying another car.
That's the West.
Internet. You know, is this a Nigerian oil print?
I also wish you drove a tan Camry.
Anyways,
Anyway,
that's a
horrible,
very
horrible podcast content.
very
Talking about a picture.
inside joke. Welcome to another episode of Auto Off Topic. How are you, Brad?
I'm wonderful, Andrew. How's life in the Great White North?
It's not much snow. It's kind of a mild winter, so.
I know we don't want to make this about weather every week, but since recording last week, I actually got some snow here.
You probably got more snow than we did.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't stick around, obviously, but there was enough to make the top of the car white. It was, I guess we'll call it a wintry mix. It was like a slushy. I thought it was hail at first, but it was definitely more of like a slush. So.
Well, you can, if you get that on your Auto Off Topic bingo card, you can check off weather. That might be next to the free middle spot.
Yep. Then next is Brad complains about a new car, and Andrew complains about Brad complaining about the weather.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Hey.
Anyway, it's newsworthy when it snows in Phoenix.
All right.
So it was like less than 40 degrees, and there's moisture in the air. So
I'm so tired. So sad for you.
You're very tired. Yes.
Yeah.
Moving on. This is a new episode. What are we talking about today?
The 500 was Sunday.
It was, and that is the Daytona 500, of course, which became the Daytona 512. How many miles was it?
It was the most laps ever. It was either 210 or 212.
Yeah.
Because of controversial overtime.
Yeah, so I was all on board with overtime because every time I've seen it, it's made the finish more exciting. But do you want to skip right to the finish, or we can go backwards?
Well, let's talk about this real quick. So I think, I was trying to think about this today. You've got before Dale Earnhardt died and after Dale Earnhardt died NASCAR, right? Would you consider that's a pretty...
It's like the ADBC of NASCAR.
Yeah, that's like a good demarcation of eras.
Sure. Well, the first era would be the switch from production-based car to tube-frame cars, and that was sometime in like the late 70s.
Okay.
And there's not much of a demarcation until the pre and post Earnhardt.
Yeah, so let's say that was 2001.
Yep.
And then it seemed like in the early 2000s, NASCAR was sort of floundering with... They were losing fans. They didn't know what to do to make the races more exciting.
Yeah, it seemed like it had become kind of a state of just nothing changing.
Yeah.
And then the changes they tried to make all seemed forced and weird.
Well,
I remember at the time, I remember comparing it to like the fake drama of the WWF, which is, well, WE now, I guess, at the time, WWF. And being annoyed at just the general, like they were trying to create drama and excitement where there wasn't, instead of trying to do something about the racing itself.
Well, then I think they looked at football, because football also was kind of bland pre like 2001. I don't think it wasn't. It wasn't as big as it is now. The NFL was far more popular now, because think about it. It like fantasy football didn't exist.
True.
they've, it was like after like the 2000s, they really started doing a bunch of stuff with football and making it into a
Is this
spectacle.
because you live in New England and after the 2000s was when the Patriots started winning all the time?
This is
That's when you
possible
noticed?
too.
Yeah.
But it was, in general, it seemed like football became more of a thing where people were playing fantasy football and
I think-
watching all the games. Like, it made people watch all the games, like care about different games that weren't their
I
home
think
team.
everything in the world got more popular once the internet got on its, got its legs.
Okay.
So pre-internet, you had more of an individual thing. Like if you liked the sports team, you liked the sports team. You had your core group of friends who you could talk about the sports team with. But then post-internet, it opened up the entire world to your opinion on what the local sports team was doing.
Right.
And I think that really kind of brought all of that together.
Okay.
And then the ability to record things on your TV also made things a little more. You didn't have to be home during the hours of this to this every weekend to see sports. You could do it whenever. There was just so much more access to things in general, and that's not anything specifically. That's things in general. That I think that even if things are not more popular than they were, there was a more connected community for it, so everything seemed more popular.
Okay, but what I was trying to drive at, no pun intended, was that it seems like NASCAR was pulling from football to try to drive excitement.
Okay.
By doing these overtimes, by doing these stage races. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I get it, because the NFL did try to do things differently. They've, overtime rules have changed, replay rules have changed.
Yeah.
Forward pass rules have changed.
And I would say
the rules have changed.
Most of the games are a lot closer.
I'd say in general, and NASCAR definitely is a lot closer now.
Oh yeah.
I think what's made NASCAR closer, there's two things that made NASCAR closer. There's the stage racing, and then on top of that, the lucky dog rule. And it's a combination of those two things. So when you have stage racing and you have the lucky dog rule, so every yellow flag, the person who is the first car a lap down gets their lap back, right? So each yellow flag that happens, and each stage has a yellow flag at the end of it, so you automatically get that. So it used to be that a third through the race, you would have, a third of the field was a lap behind. And now you're watching, and the only cars that are a lap down are the ones that are damaged and can't keep race speed or behind the wall for a long time.
Yep.
If you lose one lap now early enough in the race, it's not a big deal. You'll get it back.
Yeah, and I don't really have any issue with that. I mean, it's
no, I fully support the stage racing. It makes every race into some sort of a sprint. You have that moment of excitement 3 times in the race where, sure, it's not the finish of the race, but those stage points add up a ton, so they try real hard to get their stage points. But there's also the additional strategy of, do you move to the front and try to get the lead for the end of the stage, or do you drop back and take your pit before the stage so you can stay out after when everybody else is pitting? So it's always that strategy is a huge part of it now too that didn't used to be.
Yeah, and you've got an endurance race with sprint races in it.
That's what I mean. It's there's always something going on, whereas it's not just 3.5 hours and 500 laps and then there's a finish. You could theoretically have a very clean race without cautions, and then nobody gets bunched back up, and then somebody drives away. Which is part of what I'm saying with the stage, is that it keeps the field tight.
Yeah, there was these invented cautions is basically stage racing.
Yep.
But
I've done it in the past too with competition cautions also, just to try to push the field back up. So
yeah, and I've seen, people are like, well, if they didn't have these, like, one person would just drive away. It's like, well, yeah, I guess that was part of racing, but it turns out that's not very engaging for fans. It's
right,
unless it's your guy, but it's incredibly boring for TV if that just happens every week. And it doesn't, if one guy was doing it a lot, like, say, for example, when Gordon was on top, he would often do that for many races during the season, and people were like getting sick of it.
Yep. That's what
I mean,
lost a lot of fans was that.
Yeah. I mean, you still kind of have that with a couple drivers, but there's a little more of a chance for somebody else to win.
With the stages and yellows, you get a little less of that. You have a few of the drivers who always seem to be at the front, and you can't seem to get a race without them in contention most of the time. Unless
Well, then they're good drivers and they have a good team. That's part of the game as well.
Yeah, 100%. But what I'm saying is that it's less of a chance of them winning as much as they would if there was just 500 green flag laps and they were 28 seconds ahead of second place.
Yeah, so I feel like this method or these rules do give chances to lesser teams and lesser drivers that may not have as good of a car, but it gives them a chance to get up front.
No question. You see a lot more rookie teams doing well during the year than you ever have in the past.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's a part of that or if it's a part of the fact that the cars are more evenly matched now, or there's less skirting of the rules that they used to be, and the more money wins all the time. But I think that a lot of it has to do with the stage racing, and on top of that, the lucky dog rule. So I'm a fan of both of those things.
I don't hate it. I know it has some detractors, but I don't know. You can try some stuff. But
everything does. You can't make a change in anything without people complaining. So people want the old way. Whether the old way was better or not, or if it's debatable, you're never going to please everybody. So you might as well not even try. So you can't change something and expect everybody to be like, "Oh, that was great," because somebody's going to be like, "The old way sucked, but I like it better."
Yeah,
just because they want to be annoying about it.
Every major racing body has some sort of gimmick. F1's got gimmicks. World Rally has like the power stage at the end. Like there's,
I
don't know.
IndyCar has the push to pass thing.
You can't, because in the end, it's a fan sport that they want fans.
Yep.
So if it's not exciting to fans, then nobody's going to show up.
If nobody's watching it, there's no sponsors. If there's no sponsors, there's no racing.
I mean, look at what IMSA's done with Balance of Performance.
Yeah.
And the Rolex 24 was the most attended one ever, this past one.
Yeah, and again, that's all part of, I think, that the prospect of a 24-hour race to a casual race fan in the past used to be, God, I don't care, tell me who wins. Whereas now you have coverage of it that you can follow along on one of many cable channels or the internet, that it's brought that many more people in because they can follow the whole race. They can follow the team chatter on the internet. They can follow the race on, all the different channels that it was broadcast over. And then they're like, oh, I want to go check this out sometimes. That sounds awesome. So it becomes, because of the coverage, a better thing for the fan in general. And then they become more into it and they go attend it.
And then at the end of it, unlike, in the olden days, you've got 3 or 4 cars in the lead lap.
Yep.
You don't have a team that's leading by 2 hours.
2 hours, yeah.
Which,
there's seconds in between.
That was a feat in itself at the time, but I don't know. It's not that exciting to watch.
No, 100%. I don't think that 24-hour races have ever really been a spectator sport. I think that's only a more recent thing, that there's more people spectating, and it's for what I said, it's because the access is there now. It didn't used to be there, and now it's there. I watched a good chunk of the 24-hour race. I didn't watch the entire 24 hours because a man's gonna sleep, but I did watch a ton of it. And I have a cable box in the garage, and I can turn it on out there and watch some while I was in the garage, and then I can come inside at the end of the day and watch some more on the TV before I go to bed and wake up and turn it back on in the garage again. So it worked out well that way.
Well, when it boils down to it, these are entertainment things, and if they're not entertaining, then it's not working. So
I was talking to Naomi about that during the 500 or leading up to it, because I watched the Busch race and the truck race too, because they were all good. I hate commercialization of things, but I love watching racing. Yeah. So it's hard to be like, oh, I guess I have to watch this thing with all these giant corporate companies sponsoring it with their logos everywhere.
That's just the way it is.
Fine.
I mean, the only thing that stunk was Fox's coverage.
There were a lot of commercial breaks.
And then they did the side by side thing, like there was a wreck, like right as it went to side by side, and then you for like 2 minutes, no commentary, just commercials.
Yep. Just watching cars be cleaned up. There was no commentary. There was no replays. There was nothing. You're just like, what happened? I hate to know what happened.
Yeah,
It was the first wreck of the race too, really.
Yeah, I don't know.
Coverage could have been better.
Yeah, just do your commercials like during the stage breaks.
Well, I mean, there's hours between stage breaks, so they need more commercials than that. But it's unlike in football or basketball where during the commercial break there's no sport being played.
Yeah, that's forced.
The difference.
There's commercial timeouts.
Yeah, that's the difference between these two things. Like, you can't have
Which
a commercial timeout in car racing.
I don't think people like really think about that much because you're watching on TV, you don't realize it. You wouldn't realize it unless you were there in person watching it.
Right. And even when you're there watching it in person, they try to make that seem less obvious too. They'll put something on the screen, or they'll have the mascot do something silly, or there'll be something in those breaks so you don't notice that it's a commercial timeout. You just notice that it's something else happening on the field or on the court or whatever. But you can't do that in a racing event because you can't stop the race and be like, all right, guys, everybody stop. It's time for commercials. So I honestly didn't notice the commercials too bad until somebody else mentioned it. And I was like, yeah, there were a lot of commercials actually.
There were a lot during when NBC did the Rolex 24. There was a lot of commercials too.
Yep.
Even when you're watching on their app that they have, it is not commercial free. You're like, really?
It seemed like there was less. Like, it didn't seem as bad to me probably at first because it was just last week we watched the Super Bowl, and the Super Bowl is nothing but commercials.
That's the whole point of it.
Yeah, that's the whole point of the whole thing, and I think that's probably why I didn't even pick up on it because I've been in commercial mode, I guess. Because in 2023, you don't watch commercials. You don't watch live TV hardly ever.
No.
I don't. If it's a show that's still on cable, I want to watch. You record it and you watch it later, and you fast forward to the commercials. So when they have a captive audience, they really want to drive home their commercial breaks. So I get it, and I understand why the app has commercials too, because it's a free app, so you don't pay extra for it. So I don't know.
But anyway, well, technically, I mean, I have Comcast, which is NBC. I'm paying for it, so I should have got on my cable. In my opinion, I should have got without commercials. But
no, because if you watched on your cable box, you'd have commercials, and you're not watching your cable box, so they have to.
I am watching on my cable box through the Peacock app on my cable box.
Right.
Which is Comcast NBC. So I'm paying Comcast for the pleasure of using their app and getting commercials.
But do you pay for the commercial-free app?
No.
But what I'm saying is you didn't need to watch it on an app. You could have watched it on your Comcast box, and you didn't.
Only
so therefore,
for certain hours. If I wanted to watch the whole thing end to end, it was the Peacock
we're talking
app.
about the 24 now. Not
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, but Peacock also has an app you can pay extra for with no commercials.
Which is silly. I know why they want to make money, but it's like if you're already a Comcast customer, they should give it to you.
What does Comcast have to do with Peacock? Peacock's NBC.
It's Comcast NBC.
Oh, is it the same company now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You remember that from the 30 Rock days?
I don't.
That was a running joke on the show.
I don't. I have commercial-free Peacock here because we use it enough that it was worth the extra $5. So,
well, anyway, what about the Daytona 500, the actual racing?
Yeah, it was a good race. I enjoyed it. There were more lead changes, I think, than ever.
I caught it at lap like 110 because we were out.
So you were in for the final stage.
I caught the end of the second stage and then, watched the whole final hour or so or whatever it was.
Okay. I mean, it was pretty good. The cars that had been down laps early were all back in contention. So there was no issues there. It's all, again, part of that whole lucky dog rule and everything. There was always something going on. I think that, Jimmy Johnson was down a little bit for a while. Who was down early? So cars we follow, like Pastrana, Wallace, Elliott, Suarez, they were all pretty much down at one point and wrecked at one point or way behind at one point. And they all wound up on a lead lap in the end.
Yep.
So that kind of goes to prove my point of what I did enjoy about everything. That the racing is close enough and that's not a death note to your race when you make a small mistake. Like I know Pastrana had the first time leaving the pits, he crossed over too many pit boxes. So they had to bring him back in for a drive-through penalty, but he was still able to come back and be in the lead lap. But I think he was like in 11th at the end of the day, despite...
Made it up to 6th.
Yeah. Despite causing the last wreck, or being a major factor in the last wreck, not causing it, but he was definitely... if he had more experience, that wreck may not have happened the way it happened.
Yeah.
So... I don't know. It was good racing. I enjoyed it. I watched it flag to flag, and I never felt bored. As a NASCAR fan, I could see how a non-NASCAR fan wouldn't have enjoyed it, but I thought it was pretty good.
Hey, no wheels have come off.
No, I was going to bring that up, and I kind of forgot actually last week when we were talking about the Clash. All of the issues the cars had last year, they did not have this year.
Well, we sort of talked about that, but we forgot about the wheels. We talked about toe links and stuff.
Okay. And the hard hits in the wall when backing into the wall, they softened that structure. We talked about that. So yeah, no wheels came off, and no cars randomly caught on fire.
No, and a lot of the cars had some pretty good damage towards the end, but kept going.
Yeah, they weren't terribly slow either, which is, it used to be on the previous cars before the next gen cars, if you had any kind of body damage, especially on a super speedway race, you might as well just park it because there was no way to keep up. But these cars seem a little more forgiving in that particular area.
Somebody said the overall speeds were lower, but I don't know. Does it matter if they're doing 180 versus 190? Like,
the speeds have been going down in NASCAR for a lot of years because they're trying to keep it safer. I mean, ever since Bill Elliott had his 212 point something mile an hour lap, they're like, all right, I'm going to slow us down a little bit. This is getting a little crazy. So, and that's the whole reason restrictor plate racing exists, because otherwise these cars would be doing 300 miles an hour on this big open tracks like this. So they've been slowed down for sure. But no, I don't, as a spectator, I don't notice the difference between 180 and 190.
No.
It doesn't matter at all.
And
as long as the cars are close and they're racing each other, I don't care if they're doing 30. Oh, maybe that would be bad. But
I mean, speaking of close, nose to tail now feels like it's closer than before.
100%.
Like literally
100%.
touching. Like,
because there's less. So it used to be, again, going back to the old car, they were made out of sheet metal. So the bump draft was a more finite thing. Like, you had to be very precise, and you didn't stay as close, because if you hit their car wrong, you bent your sheet metal and you were no longer in contention, because you either A, blocked your cooling for your radiator and overheated, or B, you bent the car to the point where it was no longer aerodynamically competitive.
Yeah, you lose 20 miles an hour.
Yeah, so these new cars are some kind of urethane plasticky material, and they can take a bump without deforming terribly. And you'll notice that the bump draft is now like a noticeable bump draft. They're hitting each other pretty hard when they have a run. And it's because they know they can get away with it. And it keeps the cars really close because they're not as worried about bending their car up a little bit, because normally it doesn't get too bent.
Well, and then you can see it, the low pressure, the hood flaps like go up and down. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, the flaps that are designed to keep the car on the ground if it spins around backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see them popping up and down because the way the wind, the air pressure changes around the cars, and they link up nose to tail like that. But
that was also pretty interesting. That it was mostly 2 lanes.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of 3 wide. A couple of times, end of stages, end of the race, there was, but overall,
but as soon as somebody got shuffled out, they fell back like 5 or 10 spots.
Yeah, you got to be really careful when you pull out a line now. It seems more so than in the past too, because it seems like I don't know if it's just the style of racing now, where they're not letting somebody back in, And in the past, they let somebody back in more, but it just, once you're out, you're out. You can go from first to 20th real quick.
Well, I noticed like you had to have a partner to run with, at least 2 or 3 cars to make a run.
Well, that's because 3 cars in a row are faster than 1 car by itself, right?
Yeah.
So it's just drafting in every speed sport, from bicycle riding to speed skating. It's the same.
And then we were talking about rules. I don't mind the choose rule. I think that's kind of cool.
Nope, I'm into the choose rule. So the choose rule is, they call it a choose cone. There's a triangle painted on the track.
Yep.
And it used to be that you lined up inside, outside, 1, 2, inside, outside, 3, 4, inside, outside, 5, 6. Now it's, when you get to that triangle in the track, you can choose if you want the inside or outside lane. So the interesting thing about that is, if position 1, 2, 3, and 4 all chose the bottom line, then position 5 is like, well, nobody's chosen the top line. I can take the top line. I can restart this race in the outside pole. So it brought more cars up into the mix that wouldn't have been there,
right?
Potentially. And the reason that second and third place would choose the bottom line to be behind the first place car would be, hey, we're not going to win the race on a restart here. We know that this car is faster. We'll tuck in behind him, try to get some distance on the field before we start dicing it up to make passes. So it really kind of brings the whole field into a whole different order after every pit stop, or every yellow, I should say. So I'm down with that rule too.
I'm still surprised too that, I mean, the overall shape of the cars is basically the same.
Yeah.
That they make such a big deal out of it, whether it's a Toyota, a Ford, or a Chevy.
I was thinking about that during the race.
I didn't really understand that. Back in the day I understood it, but now I'm like,
yeah.
There was times when like a Ford would be faster or the Chevys would be faster. I mean, I'm talking like the late 90s.
There are minor sheet metal changes in the shapes, especially of the bumper in the front, which is huge. But I honestly think a lot of that is just the commercialization of...
Yeah, they just got to talk it up.
They just got to talk it up. The brand name's got to be talked up. And I think a lot of it is because they talk about all the Fords pitting together and the Chevys pitting together.
Yeah, it's weird.
Together. And I think that a lot of that is because those teams all share tech and, garage space, and, it's maybe your Ford team drivers have a closer knit relationship than a Ford driver and a Toyota driver, just based on being on the Ford team. Like, I don't necessarily know that it mattered as much, because there were a couple of drivers who were like, no, I'm going to pit when I want to pit. And here comes one guy with his Camaro, pit with all Toyotas. What's he doing? Like, I think he's just fine.
It is weird because, well, then you've got individual, maybe you've got teams of like one car, 2 car, 3 cars or whatever. And they're, all one make. And then they're talking about all of the makes as like one team. It's like, that's kind of weird, but
right. Like you have your Penske cars, which happen to be Chevys.
Yeah.
But
like, all the Toyotas making the run. You're like, okay, I guess.
But again, I think it's because that they were,
but they're already a team.
So if you have a team of Penske cars, right? Say you got, 4 or 5 Chevys.
Yeah. And you're like, you want to make a run at the front. All your spotters would be like, all right, we're all going to get together.
Right.
You're going to tell the
but
guys
then also they'll talk to the guy next to him and be like, hey, the manufacturers like it when we all run together. Can you run with our guys? And, that means that the Penske guys are going to talk to, another team that runs Camaros. Hendrick, sure. So that way you keep them all in line versus going over and talking to 23XI and being like, oh, we want your Toyotas to run up there with the Camaros because our sponsor's going to love that.
Yeah.
Because they're not. So there's always going to be some of that. And it goes back to the early days of racing with team orders and whatnot. It's always been, racing is an individual sport, but it's also a team sport. And, we talk about the over commercialization of everything and how much I don't like that and other things. But in NASCAR, it's part of it. And I think that's the biggest part of why you saw that and why it gets talked up, because the commentators know the game. Most of them are old race car drivers. They know what they got to say. And, it's all sponsorship money. I mean, how many old school NASCAR fans, they're like, I want to drive Chevrolets because that's what Dale drove.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, there's still that element of it. I don't know many people that run out and buy a Camry because, Bubba Wallace drives one, but I'm sure there's some element of that still. It's just not as obvious.
I will say
Maybe
that
if
the Toyota ad was kind of cool.
Toyota ad was cool. Maybe if Toyota made like a Denny Hamlin edition Camry,
they
maybe.
might, I bet.
Yeah. Who knows?
Oh, you know what else was interesting too? Tires didn't seem like a huge factor.
Not at all.
It's weird.
Like zero factor. So that's one thing that I noticed, especially towards the end of the race, at the end of a run.
When they just did gas and goes, you're like, what?
Well, the commentators always used to be like, "Oh, this guy's got 7 more laps on his tires, so he's got 5 mile an hour difference."
Oh, they're only gonna do left side. They're only gonna do right side. They're only gonna do rears.
They were talking about cars that had like 30 lap differences, and they were running side by side without issue.
Yeah, it was wild.
Like almost the tire wear out until they're gone. There's no degradation as the race goes on. It's like good tire, bad tire. Whereas it used to be like good tire, okay tire, still serviceable tire, bad tire. It doesn't seem to be the same anymore. It's just tire is good until it's not. And there was not a lot of flat tires either. There was no real tire issues at all.
I think they had that issue last year, right? Where they're running too low.
Last year they would be beating tires like crazy.
Yeah.
But this year it wasn't an issue at all. I remember last year at the 500 it was, oh, this team car blew a tire. Oh man, their teammate blew a tire. Oh, one more guy out there who's got 2 more laps in those same tires, and then guaranteed that tire is going to go in the next lap or two. And this year, whatever they fixed it because there was no tire issues. And especially a super speedway track that used to be where it was always the worst, because again, that 5 to 7 lap difference on tires made a difference at the end of the race.
Yeah.
Hey, we got one final restart. The guy on the outside's got 7 less laps on his tires, and he's going to drive away with it. And that just didn't happen this year. So I have to look into what the tire difference is this year, because it certainly worked, whatever it was, which is cool. So anyway, it was a good race.
Didn't make even the Clash. I mean, the Clash was so short. They didn't make a big deal out of the tires.
Yeah, no, didn't even think of it then. But even watching the other racing, like I said, I watched the Busch race and I watched the truck race.
Yeah,
and they're still running the 15-inch steelies and big sidewalls, and those vehicles had no tire issues either the whole events at Daytona.
Interesting.
Yeah. So who won, Andrew?
It's a good question.
Ricky Stenhouse Jr.
Yeah, it's like not
in the Continental machine.
It's not somebody they kind of expected. He was kind of an outside, like a dark horse.
I don't know. He's a dark horse. He's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
I think 2013 or 2012 or so he started racing. So he's been there for a decade. He's got
so now
a few wins.
When I was not watching, so that's why I don't recognize his name.
Sure. But I mean, he's driving the 48 car, which is a I apologize. It's 47.
Jimmy Johnson's car.
Yeah, he's not 48. He's 47. So I'll scratch that.
Yeah.
JTJ Doherty Racing.
Yeah.
So that's a basketball player owned team.
But that was again because of the stages and then cautions and the overtime. Like he snuck in there and grabbed it.
Yep. Yeah, and I saw there was a
I honestly thought Martin Truex had it.
Yeah, he did. I think he had it until a fatal mistake where he stepped out of line and stepped back so far, and then wrecked. Cottonelle is the sponsor of Ricky Stenhouse, and they had a post today about. I was like, this is why I hate NASCAR, because their social media post that I was fed through like some kind of advertisement, a logarithm, was like, man, 500 miles is a long time to sit in the car. I hope we kept his down there comfortable the whole time. And I was like, what uncomfortable ad. And they use the phrasing the down there, and I was like, that's weird. Like, what a strange ad. I guess.
Did you see what he did with his trophy where he took it?
No.
He went to Waffle House with it.
Okay. Is there a reason for that?
I don't know.
Just because?
Just because you go to Waffle House down there? I mean, I would.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's been the Stanley Cup goes weird places, so I get that that might too.
That's also
Fascinating.
the trophy is interesting to me too because it feels like it doesn't have anything to do with NASCAR
It doesn't.
because it's a Harley Earl trophy,
Right.
and then it's like Thunderbird 1, right? The concept car.
It's a Harley Earl design car, yeah.
Yeah, but like, what on earth did that have to do with Daytona?
I don't know. I'm sure we probably should have looked that up before this episode because I honestly had the same question. I don't know what it has to do with it, but it's always been that
Yeah.
since 1959.
Oh, you know what else was super awkward? The Fox reenactment of like the NASCAR meetings 75 years ago.
Oh, that was the one thing I wanted to talk about.
It was so awkward. What was going on?
So that was super awkward. And then did you happen to catch the greatest lap?
No, I missed it. I heard about it and I wanted to see it, but that was kind of weird, right? It was all
It was
CGI.
terrible. It was
like
terrible.
Lap overlays.
It wasn't even lap overlays. Were they lap overlays? So
Was it?
it looked like if you took Gran Turismo 1
Okay.
in 1997 and then you just smoothed the car graphics a little bit, so they looked a little more like a cartoon car, but it looked like a bad animation from 25 years ago. It was like, it's 2023 and like Forza exists, iRacing exists. They could have made this look so cool.
They could just
And
paid
instead-
them to make it.
It looked like somebody drew still images of cars and was like running them in front of a piece of construction paper on a popsicle stick. Like, it just looked terrible. I don't know how to explain it. Like, it was awful.
Yeah, because what it
I
was
was-
supposed to be like lap speed to like lap speed or something.
I don't think it was,
Was that the idea?
because I don't think it was that because they put Dale Earnhardt as the winner. I mean, he doesn't own the lap record at Daytona for lap speed.
Weird. I don't know.
And they also had like the 1959 car finished like 6 car lengths behind Dale Earnhardt, which wouldn't have happened. So I don't really understand what it was about, but I thought it was going to look cool at least, and it did not look cool at all. It was really bad. It was like what you'd expect NASCAR to do if you weren't a NASCAR fan. You'd be like, yeah, it sounds like something a bunch of rednecks would put together, but yeah, it was pretty bad. So I don't know. Harley J. Earl was the second commissioner of NASCAR.
Huh.
So I did not know that.
Yeah, the other awkward Fox thing is the superhero drawings of the drivers.
Yeah, that's also the same as football. They do that there too.
It's so weird.
Earl was a close friend of NASCAR founder Bill France, who named the trophy after him as a sign of respect.
Huh.
So, just the good old boys club. But it's funny, I didn't know that, and when I was a kid, Harley Earl was like my hero. I wanted to be a car designer, and I remember doing book reports and stuff on Harley Earl growing up instead of being a normal kid and doing it about some sports star. But I had no idea that was one of his things. So that explains it. It's the Firebird 1 on top. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's NASCAR. I'm going to bore everybody too much with our NASCAR recap here. Move on to something else 40 minutes later.
Well.
Yeah.
Yeah. What Project Car updates, huh?
Yeah, updates all right.
Take it away. Down dates, updates, sideways states.
Just stasis,
Stasis?
I guess. Stasis states. All right. So let's see. Corolla was done last time we talked. One thing it was missing was a fuel cap. I put a fuel cap on it, filled the tank for the first time, shut the car off, and it's pissing fuel out the bottom of the filler neck. Took the fuel cap off, stopped leaking fuel.
Is the filler neck rotted? Dry rotted?
It's not. It looks suspect underneath, like it's been glued in the past.
Ah.
But that explains to me why there was no filler cap on the car.
Mm.
Because when you pressurize it, it leaks.
Oh. Quick tangent.
Sure.
Not that either one of us need them, I think, but there is a guy reproducing filler necks for first gen DSMs. Like he TIG
Interesting.
welds the whole thing. It's kind of cool.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't need
Yeah.
one, but
Nope, but it is cool that somebody's doing
these. Oh, listen, these kinds of things are gonna wind up happening. Like,
Yep.
parts are becoming not available for a lot of cars, and people are just 3D printing or making from scratch. Or there's ways out there to keep everything on the road. I think, if this guy's still driving 1948 cars, we'll still be able to drive our 1995 cars forever. So no stress. Anyway, so yeah, I took the fuel cap off and it stopped leaking. So I have to decide what's more important to me right now is fixing that or driving the car, because it's going to take the car down for a few days at least, because it looks like I'll have to find a filler neck and whatever or at least some kind of the collar that attaches it to the tank, because it looks like somebody tried to goop it up with glue at one point. So, but it never leaked before, but it also never had a fuel cap before. So I think that pressure it pushed fuel through, and combination of that plus the tank being full is probably why. So I'll run no fuel cap for a little while longer until I get a chance to fix that, because I promised there'd be updates on the Mercor, right? So here's the update in the Mercor. It's all fixed. And it's still broken.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So I don't know if you recall when I first started working on the car, my thought was that the fuel pump was leaking internally. And everybody said, no, it can't be that. That doesn't happen.
I remember it, and I remember saying it's a weird failure if it happened.
Right.
But
so I decided that it was better to change the quick connect ends on it, because they are known to fail.
I mean, I wouldn't, if you're going to buy Occam's razor, the fuel pump would not be my number one thing.
Right. So I changed the ends on the lines that go into the fuel pump. They are a Ford design that was used from 84 till 89. They are not great, in my opinion. That opinion might be because I don't understand them, or it might be because they aren't great. So I have never worked on a car with nylon fuel lines before. Everything has always had metal or rubber, or obviously a combination of the two. So looking at this car, I was like, well, all these lines are plastic. I don't know how to fix this. So step number one was to learn how to fix plastic lines. It doesn't make much sense. You basically take your nylon line, and there are two common sizes. There's 5/16 and 3/8. So obviously 3/8 is a larger size and 5/16 is smaller. And you superheat the nylon, and then you push in a barbed end into the nylon and let it cool off. And it's supposed to expand back down to the size of the barbed end you put in. And there are no clamps involved in this process. So it all seems wrong. It seems like something that you should be using a clamp for, or some kind of equipment should be used to press fit these things together. The way you replace a section of line is you buy a double-sided barbed piece, and you put it in one side and put it in the other side, and do it on both sides. Or the new school way of doing it is, I don't know if you're familiar, I think you probably are, with the plumbing connectors that are called shark bite. It's,
Yeah.
instead of sweating on a brass kind of soldered on connector, you change the piping to this plastic line, and then you put on these shark bite fittings. I've used them in the house before, and they work totally fine. I've used
So
them.
it's basically a compression fitting for PVC pipe.
Yeah. And I have my hot water heater is all plumbed in with those, and it works great. And in my old house, I had a section of hose that went bad, and a section of old school metal line that went bad, and I replaced it with this stuff, and it worked great. So That also is a thing they sell now. Dorman makes it for fixing your fuel lines in your cars. So it seems suspect, but I mean, if it works in the house, why wouldn't it work in a car, right? It just seems like fuel injection lines have more pressure, but I was looking into it, and supposedly it's good to some ridiculous number. So anyway, I replaced all these lines. Let me back up a little bit. I tried to buy all these connectors, and the most frustrating thing is trying to get the measurements on these things. So it's 5/16 and 3/8. Everything to me measures out to 5/16. So I got the 5/16 ones. I tried to put everything together. I couldn't get the O-rings to seat properly. Got frustrated. Said, maybe I'll go with the 3/8 ones, because at the end of the day, the difference between 5/16 and 3/8 is a couple of millimeters.
Well, it's either slightly larger than a half or slightly under a half inch.
Right, but it's very close. It's only a few millimeter difference.
Yeah.
So, and using the caliper tool on the end of the fitting, I was getting a number kind of in between the two, and it was annoying me. So I went with the 3/8 ones, and they were obviously too big. So then I was very frustrated. Finally, I went ahead and ordered the proper, like, part listed for the Mercor. And it explained all of my confusion, I thought, because it turned out it was a 5/16 inlet and a 3/8 outlet. I was like,
Perfect.
Excellent. That explains everything. So I went to put that on the car, and I quickly realized that the lines on my car, where I was replacing them, were not 3/8. They were 5/16 as well. So now I can't find a 5/16 in and 5/16 out. They're all 5/16 in, 3/8 out. And nobody makes a barbed fitting that's a reducer. So now I'm going nuts trying to figure out what's happening. And I go back and forth. I've ordered 1,000 different parts trying to get the right thing. Can't seem to get the right things. The connectors have a horseshoe-shaped clip that holds them in place. I went through 3 different versions of those before I got one that worked. Finally got the ones that worked. But then I had the issue with the hoses. Got super frustrated. So today, after getting more wrong parts, I just said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just take some 5/16 line, like rubber hose, like fuel line hose. I'm going to put part of it on the barbed connector, and I'm going to just run it directly into the fuel pump so that I'll at least be able to move the car and drive the car until I get the proper fittings figured out. It seemed to make sense, right? I mean, it's just, let's get this thing moving. Let's move on to the next step. Let me take some time to figure out exactly what the problem is. So I did that. All excited, ready to move the car. The car's been down for like a month now, just based on waiting on parts and just other things in my life have been going on. I just haven't had a chance. Turn the car on. Car fires up. I smell fuel immediately. I look under the car. It is a waterfall of gasoline. It is leaking. I don't know how the car started. There is so much gas pumping everywhere, so I shut it off, obviously. And I called Naomi to come outside and help me so she could turn the key on and I could watch where it was coming out of. So the way the car is set up, there's this box that's bolted to like the frame rail area. And half of the box is a filter and the other half is the pump. I can see all of the connections on the filter and on the pump. So I have her turn the car key to on, just not start the car, just turn the power on. And it's just shooting fuel out of the middle of this box. And I can't tell where, but I could see the end of each line. So I know the lines aren't leaking. I'm assuming it's coming out of the side or end cap of the fuel pump. And it's just firing fuel. Never seen it before.
Yeah,
So-
at this point, I guess.
I mean, it's got to be. There's literally nothing else it can be, except for some kind of internal failure in the fuel pump that's just pissing fuel out of every orifice in the end of the pump.
Is it hard to get the fuel pump off?
I don't think so. I haven't done it yet because this was just before recording tonight, and I was super frustrated. And it was getting cold, and we have a storm front rolling in. We're supposed to have like 40-mile-an-hour winds and rain all night. So
I mean, see, you could get it off. You could put it in a bucket with some fuel and,
I'm 100% going to put it in a bucket and figure out what's happening.
and see what it does.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then if it's leaking, didn't you have a new one on hand, I think?
No, I don't have a new one on hand because I never put the order through.
Oh.
So now I got to figure out what to do for an order. So the system in the car is a twin pump system.
Yeah.
There's a lift pump in the tank.
It's very European.
Yep, there's a lift pump in the tank, and then this high pressure pump on the frame rail itself. Some people switch to the Walbro 255. But the problem with that is you have to remove the one from the tank because it no longer needs it and it overpowers it and burns it out.
Yeah.
I don't think I want to do that.
No.
I think I just want to go with the standard
keep it
one.
the way it is.
Yeah. So the thing is, I had to figure out what the right pump to get is now. I assume that the Bosch pump would probably be the way to go because I don't want to wind up with a situation like with the Starion where I bought a cheap pump and it doesn't pump enough fuel.
Yeah, it's probably fine.
So I'll buy the Bosch pump, I guess. And it's like there's $20, $30, $40 pumps available, and the Bosch pump's like $100. But I think it's worth it to buy the right pump, but maybe it's not. I don't know. I don't want to do this job anymore. I'm tired of it. I was ready to just give up today and sell the car at the end of the street. So I'm not going to get there. I know it's something simple. I'm just annoyed because it was this huge battle to get all the right parts to put it together. And now that I have it put together, it's more broken than it was before. It wasn't pumping this much fuel outside of the fuel pump before I started messing with it, which also leads me to believe that some kind of internal crack has happened. And the more I've messed with it, the worse it's gotten, right? Because it was like a seepage in the beginning, and now it's a deluge instead of a seepage.
Well, who knows what pump is in there? Maybe it's
True.
a cheap aftermarket one. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it could be. Who knows? So I'll get to it. I'm just currently frustrated because I thought I was at least going to have the car to a level where it could be started and moved and not dead in the water where it is. So, I mean, I can always push it around. It's not the end of the world, but I need a second hand to do that because it's not a lightweight car. And, Naomi's been recovering from her foot surgery, so she hasn't been able to help me out with stuff like that. So it's blocking stuff in the yard. I guess I could move it on the starter if I had to. I just don't want to. Anyway, so yeah, I'm a little frustrated. Obviously, the dejection in my voice is obvious. Because I want to move on to the next step with that car, which is hopefully this fuel pump issue fixes my stumbling issue under boost. And if it does, great. If not, that's the next issue. But it's one step at a time. And I just want to get it to a point where it's running well, drivable, and I can change out the wheels and tires and stuff. But I'm not willing to spend any extra money on it right now to do stuff like wheels and tires. So I'm not using the car. So one step at a time. The fuel pump is ordered now. So, I'm not going to have it for a couple of days. So I'm not going to take the car apart until I have the fuel pump. So here we are. Dead in the water again. But at least everything else is working. So there we're at.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. I have a complaint.
Okay.
Can I complain here?
All right.
I was going to publicly shame these people, but I have not yet.
Okay.
You've been to the local Cars and Coffee here, the
Yes.
4 till 4 Cars and Coffee
Yep.
event. You know it's limited parking.
I do.
The spots that are off the street in that like little square parking lot.
Yep.
are technically not even allowed to be used. It's not too big of a deal in the morning, but if you're going to be there late, you shouldn't park there because the people who open their businesses up later do own those parking spots and can have you towed. So when you get there and the event starts at 7, and there are 2 more open parking spots on the street, and you go to back into one of them, and you're physically stopped by people because they're saving the spot for their other friends with the same cars. Don't do that. It's not cool. They physically stood behind my car and would not allow me to pull in the spot. And they put an empty camping chair in the spot next to that to stop people from parking in it.
Oh.
So that other owners of BMW 2002s could park in their spots.
Yeah. And 4 isn't even a sit behind your car type of show either.
There's no need to do that. It's a couple hours in the morning. It's very casual. It's first come, first serve. It's my favorite weekend of the year is Saturday, is the third Saturday morning for the Shakedown Saturdays, because it's literally no behavior like this. It's low key. There's nothing bad happening. It's just a really cool morning to get together with like-minded people and have a great chat session. So I'm trying to back in the car, and the guy goes, "This is Arizona 2002 club parking only." And I was like, "It's not." He goes, "Yes, it is." And I was like, "Well, it's a public street, number 1. And number 2, there's limited parking, so I'm parking here." He's like, "Nope, not moving." Why? It's for 2002s only. No, you can't do that. So we argued for, I don't know, it felt like 10 minutes, but it was probably 30 seconds. And I was just like, forget it. I'm not gonna let these guys ruin my day. Because this is it's one weekend a month. It's my favorite Saturday morning of the month. So I went and parked somewhere else. Of course, it did ruin my day, but that's all I could think about. This parking spot sat empty. Now, the event starts at 7. Officially goes until 10. This spot sat empty until about 8:30. These 2 spots. Before another car, both their friends finally showed up. So they saved these parking spots for an hour and a half so nobody else could park there. Other people after I got there were less lucky than me because they did not find a parking spot. I was there at like 7:15. More than one person tried to park in this parking spot, and they pointed them around the corner to a side street instead of opening up this one little parking spot, these 2 little parking spots for 2 more people. I took a picture of them all standing over there being dumb, and I was going to post it, and I didn't do it because I don't want to ruin the event in general. So I'm not sure what way to go with that. I was going to post it, and everybody else told me, some people said post it, some people said don't post it. I'm erring on the side of caution. And I'm contemplating, do I send a note to the owner of the place and be like, "Hey, put a thing out there, no saving spots," or something like that, because it's just a shitty thing to do to somebody. In hindsight,
Are you friendly with the owner?
yeah.
Yeah, just mention it to him.
Hindsight,
these dudes killed the vibe, man.
Yeah, they really did. In hindsight, I should have just backed up to the camping chair and just shut the car off. That's what I should have done. I just left it there, partially sticking out on the street. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
what
do
you do. Ruin your paint?
Well, I mean, I would hope they wouldn't touch it, period, because going from a verbal discussion to touching somebody's stuff is, I mean, trust me, my brain was like, I'm going to run this chair over. But, my cooler head prevailed at that point, and I didn't do that. Listen, the past 5 years of my life, I've really been trying to, do this whole, live and let live kind of deal and not get angry and not yell and not... Because, for a long time in my life, I would blow up a bit. And I'm trying not to be that guy. I'm trying to just chill and relax. And ever since the big change in my life it's been talked about before, it doesn't need to be rehashed, I've just tried to be calm. I don't get road rage. I don't get angry. I just try to I try to relax. And It was really challenging because, again, it's my favorite Saturday morning of every month. And it's a really chill place. And it's a really no stress environment. And I got this like instant hit of stress. And immediately I was like, I'm just going to run over this guy's chair.
If you want to part together, you show up together.
100%. Also, don't worry about parking together because what's less interesting than 6 of the same cars in a row? If you want a 2002 event, hold your own event somewhere.
Like if you and I are going to a car show, like we'll show up together. If we don't park together there, I don't care.
It doesn't matter.
Did I park in the show? Okay, that's all I want.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. This is not a ridiculous thing. It's not like it's a car show with classes where the judges are going to be coming over to judge all the 2002s at the same time. It's a casual Saturday morning car event. Like there's nothing official there at all. And I know that we have many other friends who have the same thought. Like I'm not even interested in going over and looking at a 2002 when it's in a line of 7 other ones. I'll go look at it on its own maybe. But the chances of me looking at your whole group of 2002s, I don't care. I don't care.
I'll look at you from across the parking lot. Like, okay, nope.
And then it's even worse because they're 2002 owners. So of course, eventually they all opened up their hood. So all you see is a line of flat hoods facing you.
Yeah, because they flip forward.
Yeah, just looks dumb.
So they all show off their stock, whatever engine is in
their
that
stock is it M20 or something like that. I don't know if BMW is enough.
Maybe some carbs on it. I don't know.
Yeah, they all have the same 38.
Oh, maybe somebody's got a
38 Weber. Probably not. So anyway, it just frustrated me because it's a 2002. There's a million of them in the world. Whatever. It's a cool car. I like them. I don't want to see a bunch of them parked side by side. If 13 Dodge Colts showed up, I wouldn't want to see 13 Dodge Colts parked in a line unless I went to a specific Dodge Colt show. So it's not anything anti-2002. It's anti-2002 owner, which is a huge cross-section with Corvette owner, it looks like. So it was annoying. I'm annoyed by it. Don't do it again. Please, I'm sure they don't listen to this, but if they do, just don't do it. Just be cool. Next time, I'm not going to be so cool. I will probably just park in front of the spot.
Japanese car day. We had a bunch of people, listeners.
Yep.
All went. Did we all park together? No.
Did it matter? No. Doesn't matter.
We just walked around and talked to each other.
Yeah. Does not matter. And that's the other thing. These 2002 guys, like they all park there together and not one of them leaves that area. They all just stand around their car like a dummy.
No, you got to stand around your car, man. Because just in case.
Yeah. Just
in case somebody might touch it. Or maybe you want to assault someone with telling them about it.
Right. Like Mr. ATS or CTS Coupe. You got any questions about the car? No, sir, I don't.
I've seen a million 2002s, and you have literally. I saw you had a little tiny picture of it you shared.
Sure.
It had fake mini lights.
Yep.
I'm like, I know that car. I've seen that car. Not that car, but I've seen that car.
Right.
About 20 or 30 times. That's just there's a formula to make a 2002.
Yeah, a set of 8-spoke rotas. And a cheap set of eBay fog lights. And done.
Yeah, it's got hella 500s.
Yep.
Which are maybe fine. It's got Revolution. Maybe it's got Panasports. Maybe.
No, they were not. They were rotas.
Oh,
right
really?
down the Rotocenter caps.
Okay.
Yep. So it is what it is. It's funny. A friend of mine arrived after I did, who owns a 2002, and they pointed him right into the spot, and he backed right in. Not his fault. He doesn't know any better. He's not part of the AZ 2002 club, but he had the right car, so they allowed him to park there.
Oh, what a jerk.
Right. And I was talking to him afterwards, and he's like, yeah, I had no idea. He's like, I just saw an open spot, and I took it, and nobody said anything. He's like, but then afterwards, people were talking to me about the other 2002 owners, and I was like, oh, that sucks. I won't park with those guys again. So he was ticked off about it, too. So, and his car deserves to have the hood open because his car is Honda powered. So,
oh, that car?
Yeah,
the green car.
Yeah, the green one. Yep,
that I saw. We were out there. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that car is amazing.
No, it's what is that F20C powered?
Yeah,
so
that's cool. Not like an average 2002 owner.
No, and he again had no idea he was part of anything when he parked there. He just saw an empty spot and happened to be next to a couple 2002s. Didn't know that other people had been ushered away from the spot.
Well, that's the other problem is that, like, they look down their noses at your Corolla, but it's literally like the same car as a 2002.
Oh, 100%.
Formula wise.
100%. All these cars are the same car, formula wise. And I've had that conversation too. Like, everybody's like, why this, not this? And I'm like, what does it matter? Like, your 2002, I mean, okay, 2002 has got independent rear suspension. So it's got one up on the Corolla or the Colt.
All right, so it's more like a 510.
It is a 510. It's the same class of car. And it's just one of those things where it's just
sedan.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's just, they're just being elitist and they're being annoying. And I just wanted to run over their chair. So next time, I won't run over their chair because that's not the right way to do it. But
they were cheap cars for a million years.
Until like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah. They're only recently worth money.
The other thing I forgot to mention, after they got in this whole discussion with me, I had to turn around to get out of there. And I'm turning around. And then they all started screaming at me for getting too close to their car when I was turning around. Like,
okay,
I'm not going to hit your car, guy. Like, relax. Yeah, I'm so mad you let me park here. I'm going to smash into the side of your car. Get out of here. I almost wish I did at this point. Anyway, I was just very frustrated by the whole thing. And I don't like it. So I think I am going to email Nico and tell him what was going on. And then I'm going to arrive a half hour early next month, and just park right in the middle of that one section.
Why don't you show up with the 944, and then Jeff can show up, and then you'll find that other person with the red 944.
Right. I don't want to be better than them. I want to do it in the Corolla, so they have to stick with this crappy old car and won't even be at their level. I'm sure that's part of the thing too. It's their level of car. It's not a Toyota Corolla. So, whatever. I don't want to cause a scene, but I want to burn them internally. So, Ron said he'd show up with his Riata and open his hood and put a sign in there that says 2002 parking only.
Or you should put "Do not touch" all over it.
Right,
look, but don't touch.
Yeah, exactly. More than you can afford, pal. Riata.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my rant session about BMW 2002 owners. It was really off-putting. I didn't really know how to properly handle it, and in hindsight, there's a lot of different things I should have done. But I just, at the moment in time, I was like, you know what? I don't want this to be my day. Like, this is not how it works. So, but just the balls to stand behind somebody's car and not let them back up. Like, how arrogant do you have to be? Very arrogant. That's all I know.
All right. A little bit of housekeeping.
Yes.
Pedantic corrections.
Okay.
I said Rally Santini.
Yes, you did.
Rally Santi.
Yes.
Is actually his username.
Yes.
Or
Santi.
Santi.
Yes.
Santi.
Oh, listen.
I'm never going to say it right, so get over it. Deal with
Rude. It. All right, Andrew. No problem, Andrew. Yeah. That's it from now on. Andrew Pascarella.
Boricua. I said it. Boricua.
You did not say Boricua, so that's good. Yes.
Nope. Yeah. Anyway, we've got. Come join the Discord. There's also a dirt rally league going on.
Yep.
You've got. Actually, by the time this goes up, the current Sweden one will be done. So you've got Brad. You've got one more day to do it because I'm
doing it tonight after this. Actually, I'm watching Oak Island, and when I'm done watching Oak Island, I'll do that.
Oh yeah.
So obviously, they must have found the gold this week. So
they're gonna find it every week. This is the week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
10 years. Cool. 10 years have gone by, but it's fine.
I don't know. I love it, Joe. I don't know why. I just
I was.
You don't have to think that hard about it.
I made
It's
fun of
like-
you for watching it all the time, and then I started watching it, and I got totally sucked in, and I watched like 6 seasons in a weekend. So
all of the people that are on it are like people who remind you of like a
Us.
dad type person. Yeah, or of us. Like it's just
Yep.
like, and that's probably why it's comforting to watch. It's just like,
sure,
but anyway,
it's got that This Old House vibe.
yeah, sorta.
Yeah.
It's a dad show.
Yep. Hey, we're dads,
Anyway.
it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, come join the Discord. Playing our Dirt Rally League. We got a lot of fast people in there. We're trying to get some of the slower people to be faster. We're helping them out.
I'm not helping out because I'm one of the slower people. You help me out.
I know, I'm like dead in the middle lately. So I'm a little better than, not quite last, not quite first.
If
So
you're
never
not
slow,
first,
never-
you're
Never slow, never fast.
never slow,
sometimes
never
last.
yeah, no, never. Well, hold on, what is it? Never, not slow, not fast. Never first, never last.
Yeah, that's
There
it.
you go.
Yeah. Let's see. You can follow us on Off Topic podcast on Facebook, Off Topic on Instagram. I am Racing Anger on Instagram. We've got Parked on the Block on Instagram, Parked on the Block on Twitter. Go to the website, subscribe to the newsletter.
Yes.
Check out-
please.
Please look at some of the articles. Give us some views. Comment on them.
Comments.
That would be great.
Yep.
We're getting comments like when we post them, cross-post them to social media. So that's
Yep.
good. You've been doing a lot. I've been trying to do some on the weekend and here and there during the week, but you've been doing a lot. That's really cool.
Yeah, I've been trying to do a bunch of articles. I have actually going to do 2 tonight before bed, 2 more tomorrow. And I've been posting a ton to our Instagram page and to our Twitter page just to kind of keep it going, making sure we have people knowing that we're there. I've noticed that since I started actively posting on the Instagram page, we've actually gotten a few more followers on both the Instagram page and on the website itself. So that's good. We also take submissions. If you see an interesting car for sale, you're welcome to email it to us through the website or us directly, or message us through any social media platforms. And I will try to remember to give you credit that the listing came from you. I did forget to give Nate credit for sending me that sweet Turbo Capri yesterday, but I fixed that. So
Yeah.
come join us.
And we've got Scale Autocast, which you've
Yes.
been carrying that too. But I've got some new stuff I should post over there.
Excellent. I have at least 3 or 4 more things in the hopper to go. So you got a couple days. There'll be another one going up tonight.
All right, Brad, where can they find you?
They can find me all those same places, or if they're really interested in finding more stuff, they can find me at Instagram at TSISS350, where I've been posting a lot of the Corolla on shamelessly because it works and I've been driving it. And even though it's 5 or 6 different colors, it still photographs well. So that's it.
All right, cool. So, as always, keep your cars analog and aim for the roses.